What do you know about grief? What experiences or experience do you have with grief? I ask this because I'm in thought of someone I know, someone I care about, a friend of mine who is in the throes of grief. And the many layers that arrive out of seemingly thin air, be it an empty space or room that was once occupied, be it a thought, memory, recollection. Grief has a way of snatching us. It catches us off guard. It sweeps us off our feet, but not in a magical, romantic way, in a way that makes it hard to find our footing, to focus. And yet in life, we have to continue to function. What do we do with the grief we carry? Where do we turn when it's hard to take a step forward in a day because the pull and gravity of the grief keeps us sort of downward, floorward in the dark? And everyone has their own unique experience, no matter how many of us has experienced grief, be it deep and wide and profound and magnanimous, or a little subtle sort of loss. Everyone's experience is unique. So today on the mat, I want to pause and just acknowledge the gravity of grief, the weight that it holds, and how we have to carry that in our lives. And I want to say, I hope that if you are someone who's experiencing grief, who may be in the throes of it, the raw potency of it, where the tears fall and life seems a bit wobbly, I hope that you have someone with whom you're able to talk. Someone who can hold the gravity of the grief that you share and not downplay it or dismiss it or, oh, you'll be okay, or, any way where it's being diminished or disregarded. I hope that you have someone with whom you're able to share. That's important. We're not grieving alone in this world. Someone throughout our everyday is encountering, experiencing grief, and yet it can feel like we're alone, especially if we do not have the right people around us who can hear it and hold it and be with it and validate it. Just allow the expression. And if you are a friend of someone who is grieving, are you able to be that sounding board? Are you an open vessel to be filled with another sharing of their grief? It can be hard to listen to one suffering because they lost someone. Maybe it evokes in us or brings back our own unresolved, unprocessed grief. Maybe it causes us to be afraid that one day we will lose someone. That happens. And it may be best to even say that this is very hard to hear. It makes me afraid. That over, you'll be all right. God doesn't give you more than you can bear. Let's stop with that one. It invalidates one's experience. It says you shouldn't feel how you feel because you can handle it. Wow. Who wants to have to handle deep grief? Who wants to have to handle terminal illness? We handle all things in life when they show up, but it doesn't mean the handling does not impact us in some real way. May we be mindful of the words that we say. May we be mindful of how we meet another person's vulnerable sharing. And if we're the one sharing, may we be ever discerning and compassionate and holding of our own hearts and experience to choose wisely the people we share with. Grief is painful and beautifully mysterious. To feel grief is to say that I felt something before: love, adoration, even confusion. To be impacted in such a way that it pulls at your heart and it feels visceral means you had the capacity to feel and to love. Not everyone feels deeply in that way. Not everyone is unconditional with their hearts, such that if they lose someone, they feel a bit shattered. Not everyone moves through grief at the root. Many people live on the surface, making the root very hard to access. And so when someone dies, it's as if, you know. And sometimes when people die, grief doesn't snatch us, but there are many thoughts that we think. Maybe there was some conflict, some estrangement. Maybe there were some layers there. That's another thing about grief. It isn't linear. It isn't one way. There's not one way to be. Grief is like a mosaic. Where is the start of the mosaic? Where does it end? In many ways, grief starts at the very beginning of an encounter, especially one that we hope will be long lasting. It starts at the beginning because we know that ultimately, eventually, at some point, this will end. And that still doesn't make the ending point easier to be with when it shows up. And we don't always remember that endings happen because of beginnings. Who would begin anything if they focus fully on the ending? Or maybe we would begin many things more consciously, with more intention, more presence, more truth. So I'm thinking about grief this morning and how, like water, it just flows through us and it finds the lowest point within us and occupies that space and just keeps filling from there. May we have the capacity and room to hold the filling of the grief we're experiencing. And if another is so brave and inclined to share with you their grief, may you be a container for it. May you see it as a gift and a privilege to be in receipt of someone's big moment. And you do not have to have any words. Silence speaks volumes. It can be so loud in our grief and in our presence for another. And when they have reached the period at the end of the sentence of their sharing, you can say, "Thank you for trusting me with your grief. Thank you for sharing that with me. And then maybe you can simply ask if there's anything that they need of you. And allow for the space between words. It's not like, oh, thank you for sharing that. Yeah, no, that's anxiety. Pause, breathe. That sounds like a hard thing to experience. I really appreciate that you felt comfortable sharing that with me. I know how you feel about the person, the sentient being that you lost, because perhaps it's an animal. May we remember presence when presented with another's grief. And for the person in the throes of grief, may you love yourself well in all of the hard moments. There's nowhere for you to be other than right where you are. I said to my friend, eventually, you'll be in another moment. But eventually is not yet. So be in the moment that you're in.